Hello there, Claire Leroy here from the Little Design Corner, and welcome back to my channel where I help designers, decorators and home renovators create beautiful homes that they love to live in and businesses that they love to work in. And today we are into part 2 of my series on my Roseville renovation project. And if you missed the first part of this video, then you can jump back into my channel and take a look at that. And what I'm doing is basically dissecting this project completely because I get so many questions on social media about all different aspects to do with this project. So we are breaking down the full renovation process, all the things that went wrong, all the things that went right, all the products, the fixtures, the fittings, everything I used, everything I'd do again if I was doing it over, and more. And today we are into video 2 of this series. Now, if all of these sorts of videos sound of interest to you, then please don't forget to hit subscribe on my channel and also hit that notification bell as well so that you can be kept up to date when I release new videos. Now, originally I thought I was going to be breaking this video series down into 3 videos, but as I started creating the slides for this video that I'm sharing today, I realized there was actually a whole lot more going into this project than I realized. I didn't want you to sit through a full hour video, and so as a result of that, I have actually broken the series down even more, and it's probably going to end up a 4 or a 5 video series now. Now, if you've already watched the first part of the video, you'll know what we're looking at here. We're looking at the renovation of a Californian bungalow from about 1918, and the renovation was undertaken in 2 phases. So the first phase was to completely overhaul and renovate and restore the original Californian bungalow, and then the second phase, which was undertaken a couple of years later, involved the addition of a full modern extension to the back of the property, including a pool, landscaping and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And so where we're up to in our video series is that in this video what I want to do is start to look at the renovation of phase 1. So that's the restoration of the Californian bungalow, and we're going to look through in this video at the why we purchased the property in the first place, the things we look out for when we're purchasing a property to renovate, my husband and I. And I also want to walk you through the good things about the property and the bad things about the property. We're going to look in more detail at the floor plan changes that were made and why we did those. And I'm also going to take you completely under the hood and show you the budget breakdown for this property as well, including the massive mistake that I made with the budget that I'm going to share with you when we get to that section. So let's get started with this video. I'm going to jump off the camera because I think it's distracting to have to watch me while we move through the whole video. So I'm going to jump off the camera and let's get stuck into today's video. Okay, so as I just mentioned, what I want to cover in this video are 4 main things. So I want to show you a range of photos from the existing bungalow. I want to show you also the floor plan, which we briefly looked at in our first video in this series, but I want to walk you through a few more of the changes that we made to that floor plan and just show you some more images of how this all worked, why I made the changes I did, and also just talk to you a little bit about what I might do differently if I was doing this project again, because there's always things that you probably would do differently when you're doing a massive project like this one. In the second part of the video, I'm going to share some of the things to think about and look out for when you're planning a renovation of a period property like this. So we came across things like asbestos. We had to deal with the fact that these old houses are absolutely freezing, so the heating and the cooling, and we also had some old wiring issues to deal with as well. So I want to talk to you about some of the things to look out for, some of the things where you might not be aware that you have budgeting things that you're going to have to plan for. And then in the third part of the video, I'm going to show you the 3D designs and the plans that I drew up in SketchUp, just to give you an idea of how handy SketchUp can actually be to help you visualize a renovation before it takes place. Plus, I'm going to show you the end result of that project in SketchUp. So we're going to do a little walkthrough on the SketchUp model as well. And then finally, at the end of the video, I'm going to pull back the curtains and I'm going to show you the budget. So I'm going to share all of the costs of this phase of the project and show you each item line by line. Now, keep in mind this project was undertaken a number of years ago, about in 2015 2015, I think, or so. So budgets change, you know, the cost of renovating does change, but hopefully this will give you a little bit of an idea of what things actually cost, because sometimes when we watch all these renovation shows, it can be hard to believe what real renovations actually cost. So I'm going to take you completely under the hood and share all of those details. I'm also going to share with you how the budget for this phase of the project completely blew out. In fact, it almost doubled, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why this happened and how you can actually avoid this happening in your own project. There was actually one key reason for why this happened, and it's an error that lots and lots of people make, and that you'd think that myself as an interior designer would not have made. But I knew at the time I was making this mistake, and I didn't quite realize what sort of impact it would have, or that it would have such a strong impact. So stay to the end to hear about that mistake and to look closely at the budget. And then once we've finished all that, in the next videos, what we're going to look at is the completed images of this project. And I'm going to share each room one by one, and I'm going to tell you all the products and the features that were used, and I'm going to show you how this bungalow looked at the end before, in the final videos of the series, we look at the breakdown of the full renovation and addition and extension that we put on the back of the house. So I hope you are really excited to learn about the transformation of this property and just learn some tips and tricks for yourself if you're renovating at the moment, or even if you're renovating a period property for yourself. So let's jump into the first part of our video. Okay, so let's start by taking a bit of a tour of this property in the condition that my husband and I bought it in. I'm going to use some images and the floor plan to highlight some of the issues that we had with the property and just some of the opportunities that we saw with it as well. Now, I apologize that some of these images are quite pixelated. These are the images that I took from the original sales page. So they are a little dodgy, but hopefully just bear with me, and the information's still good. So just bear with me with that. Okay, so let's look at some of the good things about the property that we bought. So my husband and I renovated and sold quite a few properties before we bought this one. This is something that we've done a lot in our marriage. And there's definitely some things that we look for when we're purchasing a new property to help us know whether it's going to be a really good fit for a renovation and for resale. So the first thing that's really important to us is just looking at the construction of the property. So with this particular property, and Californian Bungalows in particular, it had extremely good construction. In fact, this property was triple brick, so it was extremely sturdy and in really good condition as well. So there were no major signs of structural damage. You want to be looking out for, large cracks or sunken areas of the house, and we didn't have any of that with this property. So we knew that structurally it was a good one to be working with. As you can see from the site plan here as well, we also had a really good sized block, and it was a flat block as well, which was important to us because we knew that the extension we were wanting to put onto the house, we wanted to have all of this as level as possible because one of our children actually lives in a wheelchair. He's profoundly disabled. So that was very important for us and for our family, but also flat blocks are actually really, really good for resale as well. Most people, if given the chance and the opportunity, would pick a flat block over a sloping block as their preference. So this was really good, and the block size was really good as well. So it was about 667 square meters, and the location of the house, the position of the house on the block was also really good. As you can see here, we've got a really good driveway here, lots of space down the side so that we can actually access the back of the property for that extension that we knew we wanted to add on. Plus, we also knew that we had this nice big garden out the back to make use of for the extension, plus enough room so that there could still be a little bit of yard left over. And of course, we had this really nice and grand front garden as well, which just gives the property a really good street appeal. Other good things about the property, we had lots of original condition features. So lots of those period features were still intact. We had the LED light windows in most of the windows of the bungalow. There were a lot of these ornate original ceilings. We had an original fireplace that we were working with that was really nice. It had a nice herringbone sort of detail in the back here, and I actually really liked all of this brickwork as well, so I really liked this feature. And we also had this sort of traditional archway, which we did move actually. This is its new location. It was in a different location when we bought the house, but I got the builders to pull it out. They were not pleased with me because they were very worried about damaging it, but I got them to pull it out and move it as a feature of my my hallway that I was putting through the house, but we're going to cover that a little bit later in the video. And then other nice features, we had this really nice original terrazzo flooring in the front porch. So that was really nice. And we also had the nice original skirtings, architraves, and picture rails as well. So here's the nice picture rails, which we restored and brought back to condition. And we had some of these really nice sort of plate rails in some of the more formal rooms as well. The location as well. So that's the other thing that you want to think about when you are purchasing in terms of good things to look for a house to renovate is your location. So for this particular house, it was in the catchment for really good schools and it was near public transport. So that was obviously two really good things. But my husband and I also look for growth or signs of growth in an area that we're moving into. And in this area, there was heaps of renovation happening, which is always a really good sign. And also there were some new sort of on-trend cafes starting to spring up in the area as well. But these were quite new to the area, which meant that value was still quite good, but that you could see that there was some money coming into the area. So make sure you check school catchments for properties before you buy them. Even if you don't have children, it's important with renovating that you're always keeping sale in mind, even if you don't think you're going to sell anytime soon, because people definitely look at the catchment zones for where houses sit these days. So that's definitely something to keep in mind and look out for. All right, but there was also some issues with the property as well. And when you're looking to purchase an older style house, you're going to want to look out for some of these things and just think about whether you've got the budget or the patience even to solve them. Now, an obvious one is asbestos, and this was quite obvious for us that there was actually obvious asbestos in the house. We could see it under the eaves of the entire perimeter of the house. It was also obvious in parts of the old garage. But if you do have some asbestos, you probably have asbestos in other parts of the property as well, where it may not be quite so obvious. So for example, for us, and I didn't know this until I renovated this particular property, I didn't know that asbestos could live under the lino, for example, under lino flooring in a kitchen. I didn't know it could live under the lining of kitchen cupboards, which it did in this property. And we also had some in the ceiling of the sunroom out the back as well. So that was another place to check. So if you do have signs of asbestos, make sure you get someone in to give you a bit more of a thorough check around, just so that you know exactly what you're dealing with. Asbestos is such an annoying additional cost and time waster when you're renovating older properties like this. So make sure you've got the budget to fix it up, and make sure you've got the patience and the time in your renovation timeline to make sure that you can sort this out without things all going out of time and out of sync. All right, another issue with the property is that the garden actually was south facing. So in Australia where we are, we want our gardens ideally, in an ideal world, to be facing north, because this will bring in the best daylight throughout the day and the best sunshine throughout the day. So this is probably one of the biggest flaws of the property, and it really can put buyers off having south facing backyards. So you definitely have to think carefully about that when you are thinking about renovating with sale in mind, which we definitely were doing. We were building a house for our own family, but we knew that at some point down the track we would be selling this to make a profit. So we always try and keep all the different issues in mind when we're purchasing. So when you do have a south-facing garden, it's really, really important to consider where the light is going to come from. So the fact that we knew we wanted to put on an extension at the back of the property, the first thing in my mind was, how can I bring light into the extension? And how can I also, once we've added that extension, make sure the back rooms of this existing Californian bungalow still have good light as well? So that was definitely something that was at the top of mind when we were thinking about how we would renovate this and plan for the renovation of this. Now, the good thing about having a south-facing garden is that the front of your house is going to have a lot of really nice sunshine, and the front rooms of this house had really beautiful warm sunlight coming through all day. So that was a really nice thing about the house in the end, because we actually, through the design that I came up with, meant that we had really good sunshine coming in through the back and really good natural daylight, plus the front rooms of the house were also really bright and flooded with light as well. All right, another issue was that we did have all the original wiring and lighting in this house. So it was very obvious that this was going to need to be upgraded, not only for safety reasons, but because modern houses just need more power than what was needed back when this house was built. So we needed to update the entire electrical box. We needed to update the way that the electrical box spoke to the actual wiring on the street. It was one of the biggest line items of the renovation, actually, and it came in at around $25,000 from memory just to rewire the original bungalow. So this is another really annoying expense because you can't see, in inverted commas, the upgrade, but the complete wiring was pulled out and the new wires were run through the entire house. So if you're doing this and you plan on doing additional works down the track, you also want to make sure that the electricians know about your plans and allow for these as they do electrical upgrades. So for us, for example, in this first part of the renovation, we were only renovating this original bungalow, but I made sure that my electricians knew that we were adding another 100 square meters or so to the back of the house, because that means that at the time of doing the upgrade, they were able to allow for everything that was going to be needed in that renovation as part of the upgrade they did for this first phase of the renovation project. So just make sure you're always thinking a bit ahead with things like that as well. All right, let's talk about heating and cooling, which was another really large budget item. The cooling in these older houses is normally pretty good. They do remain reasonably cool in summer, but the heating is a major issue for these old houses because they are literally freezing in winter. So you're definitely going to want to try and install central heating. And this, again, is obviously really expensive. So make sure you think about the cost of this. And also the other thing to think about is where your big system that runs this central heating and cooling is going to go. So do you have room under your house for this big unit or next to the house potentially? You're going to have to think of your neighbours. If you're going to want to be running that, you need to make sure it's not going to be situated where it's going to annoy your neighbours. It's also a sound violation in many cases, so you just need to be really careful about that. Or perhaps you've got room up in your ceiling for your big unit that comes along with central air conditioning and cooling. So just have a think about where that might go. Only pop it up in the ceiling if you know that you're never going to build a second story, because it does come with lots and lots of vents and things that all come through the ceiling. So just make sure that you run it up in the ceiling as long as you know you're not going to try and extend up into that space. So this is something to just think carefully about, as the boxes that do run these central cooling and heating systems are huge. And in my experience, the air conditioning and heating companies will turn up and they rarely care very much about where you're going to put these, and they'll actually try and push you into whatever is actually easiest for them. So make sure you're very clear on where it's going to go before you start meeting with these contractors, and make sure that you are very firm with them about where you want to have your units installed. And so then the final thing that was an issue about this house was really its floor plan. So it did not have a good floor plan for modern living, and I wanted to update the plan to have all the bedrooms in this older part of the house, and then have the living zone, so the kitchen, the dining, the kitchen, dining and the living room in the new extension. So the issue we had was that we only had the budget, as I think I've mentioned, to do this front part of the house and renovate that in phase 1, and then my family moved into this before we were able to add that big extension to the back. So I had to plan for phase 2 while I was creating phase 1, but also had to make the house livable in phase 1, even though I wanted to turn this into the 5-bedroom house once we had done phase 2. So hopefully that makes sense, but I'll go through it in a bit more detail in a minute. So this is basically the floor plan that I was working with the project. This is the original floor plan of the original bungalow. And there are some really great things about this floor plan that I absolutely loved. The sizes of these rooms are enormous. So they had 3-meter ceilings, and as you can see, 4.4 by 4.3 meter bedrooms. These were absolutely fantastic sized rooms. But I also knew that I wanted to create a master bedroom with a walk-in robe and an ensuite. So these 3 bedrooms were very obvious. They had the nicest period details in them as well. So I really didn't want to touch too much about these. And in the end, these mostly had just a cosmetic upgrade of new carpet, paint, joinery, new lighting, and some other things that we'll look at in more detail as we go through. The bathroom obviously also had a cosmetic upgrade as well, which we're going to look at. It's a very good sized bathroom for kids. It had a bad layout though. We had this very sort of strange wasted space. The door definitely swung the wrong way. So there's definitely some changes that I made there to improve it. So the issues with the floor plan really came to this back section. So we had no sort of way to immediately create a bedroom, like a master bedroom, like I was saying. And I also really disliked this central family room because I knew we wanted our extension on the back of the house here. But if we did do that and we left this family room, we would have this strange room that I mentioned in the last video that we would have to walk through to get to that area. And I just really didn't want that. I really love to be able to open the front door and see right through the nice traditional house all the way through to the modern extension. So I knew that I wanted to try and create that corridor straight through the middle of the house. And actually by doing that, we would solve some of these other problems in terms of how to make the master bedroom suite and also how to create the 5th bedroom study that we're going to use as a kitchen when we first moved in. So this is how I resolved the floor plan to help me achieve what I wanted with this first phase of the renovation, but it also helped us to just be able to move in and then live there for a couple of years as well before we added that extension. So basically here are the changes. As I said, we basically just did the cosmetic upgrades here. You can see I flipped the bathroom around a little bit. I did remove the bath, which I definitely felt was a mistake, and I'll talk to you about that in more detail when we get to the bathroom, but that was definitely something that I wish I hadn't done. And then we created this hallway all the way through by basically dividing up all of these areas and doing some structural changes to these. So we created a new walkway through here, and we blocked off this old door here. And then we created a new wall here, which we deleted this wall here and added this one to create a nice big master bedroom. The kitchen area, the old kitchen in the original house, became the walk-in wardrobe. And then all of this sort of messy business here turned into our ensuite. To deal with the issue of sunlight, so this bathroom here, I knew that because of the extension that we wanted to put on, that this was not going to be able to have a window. So to compensate for that, I put a skylight in this ensuite to give it some really nice natural light. We already had a window here that wasn't going to be blocked by the extension, so that was good for the walk-in robe. This potential little bit of corridor here had the potential to be quite dark because we were moving into the depths of the house at this point. So I put a skylight in this area as well, and that was a massively important thing to do because it brought a lot of really nice natural light to this part of the corridor, which was really important. The other thing we did that was a really big line item in the budget for this round of the renovation was we added new joinery to every room, including in this hallway, which is some joinery that people really like on my Instagram account. So we'll talk about what I used for that, how I created it, and the colors and the handles and all of that sort of stuff as well. And as I mentioned before, in this space, we had that traditional archway between the family and the old dining room, and I got the builders to remove that and retain it, and we've got it reinstated in this position in the corridor, which meant that it looked like it had been there the whole time and really gave a nice feature to the corridor as you came into the house. So that was definitely something I was so grateful that I ended up doing. It was a sort of decision that my husband wasn't on board with, but I pushed back against it. I really did think it was going to look good. I also really hate throwing away period details from a house. If they can be reused somewhere, then definitely try and do that when you're restoring an old property like this. So it was definitely something that became a really beautiful focal point of the house. Okay, so now you've seen the floor plan of that house. What I want to do is actually just show you a tour of how the design looked once I had mocked it up in SketchUp. So this is basically the drawing software that I use to design all my projects. It's a really standard piece of software that's used in the interior design and architecture industry. And basically what I'm going to do is take you on a fly through of this sort of front part of the bungalow in its completed state. And basically the benefit of SketchUp is that you can draw up the finished project and take a walk through like we're about to do, so that you can see how the full house comes together. You can see how spaces start to look, and you can get a really good sense of your space planning, your colors, your finishes, and all of those sorts of things. Now, as an aside, if you weren't aware, I do actually have a course where I teach how to use SketchUp. So if you're interested in learning how to use that to mock up your own designs, then I will put a link for a free information session that I run all about SketchUp. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what you can do with SketchUp and how it can benefit you in your own home renovation, then you may be interested in checking that course out. So I'll pop the link for that in the comments below. So let's just take a little look and I'll walk you through this house now. So we come in and this back area is the study, what eventually in phase 2 became the study. in phase one, this actually was our kitchen for a couple of years. So I'm going to show you when we move into the next video, the 2 phases of this room. I'm going to show you what it looked like with our temporary kitchen, which was actually a really nice kitchen that we put in this space. And then I'll show you also how it looked once it became a study. And this was a beautiful room. We installed this brand new window in this room that looked out over the pool and the extension, which we're coming to in future videos. So that was a really, really nice room, and that was created from the old sunroom. And then here you can see we are going to go into the master bedroom area, and this is the one that was created by separating out that old family and dining room to create this really nice big master bedroom that went into this really nice walk-in robe that we had with this floor-to-ceiling joinery, custom joinery, and then that ensuite with the skylight above to bring in really nice natural light. So there were still some things about this that I probably would do differently, but as we move into the next videos where I walk you through the rooms one by one and show you the befores and afters and all the products and fixtures and fittings used, I will talk you through those. Now we're coming to these big joinery cupboards, storage cupboards in the hallway there, and they're definitely something that I get a lot of questions and comments about. So I'm going to tell you where these handles are from, what product I used to create those, and all of those sorts of details as well. And then at the front part of the house here, we have those 3 bedrooms, which basically were the ones that we just refurbed, really. We did paint, we did new carpet, we put in plantation shutters, we put in new joinery, we did new lighting. So they still, it's still costly exercise, but it definitely wasn't. New door handles. I'll talk you through all of the different things that we did in each of these bedrooms as we get to the next video and do those before and after videos. There's a nice big linen closet there, and then this was the new layout for the bathroom. So as you can see, you can get a really good sense using SketchUp of what your finished renovation is going to look like. When you see the befores and afters, you're going to see that this fly-through video basically looks exactly like what the end product of the house looked like. So it's an absolutely awesome piece of software. I've used it in every single interior design project that I've done over my sort of 8 years of working as a designer, and clients absolutely love being able to just sort of picture their houses in 3D, because many people are just not good at visualizing how something's going to come together by you just explaining it to them. They need to sort of be able to see it themselves, walk through it, experience it like we are in this video. So it's just a really powerful piece of software and I love it. You also can download all different bits and pieces of furniture and accessories and all of those sorts of things. They've got like the entire catalogue of IKEA in there, for example. I think that cot's from IKEA. In fact, these drawers might be from IKEA, and they've got just all different bits and pieces. You can apply your own wallpaper. You can change the scale of that. This is all just custom wallpaper. So you can do any number of things inside SketchUp to create a fully custom home. So it's really, really fun to play with. So that's pretty much a tour of the front part of the bungalow. You can see we now come down and start to enter into that renovation, which is where we're going to end up when we eventually get to the subsequent videos of this series, but we haven't quite finished the bungalow yet. So before we finish up this video, what I want to just talk to you quickly about is one of the most important things about renovating, and that is your budget. So I'm actually going to just show you the budget and talk about it just quickly line by line and just tell you about why it ended up running over so much over what I originally anticipated. First of all, you may just be surprised to see what it actually does cost to renovate a original home like this. Some of those things like the full rewiring, the heating and cooling system, the joinery, really, and the bathroom fittings and things, the asbestos, they're really big ticket items. So people think that it's just going to be a bit of $100,000 cosmetic upgrade, but actually when you are renovating a completely original home like this, you can come across sort of hidden costs, if you like, that many people forget to factor in. So basically, I think the biggest thing to point out though is where we went wrong, which is an error I knew I was making at the time, was that we just basically got our builders in. There were builders that I already knew, and I just got them to start working. I hadn't really been very clear about my design to start with, and I kept adding to it as we went along. And as a result of that, firstly, I underestimated the trades anyway. I should have really put in probably $100,000 for the trades because of how big the project was. But in the end, you can see that the trades just overran massively. Now that was probably, I haven't worked with that builder again. We got semi ripped off by this because they were charging by the hour. I would come and I would find the builder sitting there, you know, being lazy, working, but not working that fast, because when you're working by the hour, there's no incentive for the builders to actually be working fast and working hard for you. So you never ever want to get into this situation of doing a big project like this on an hourly rate with a builder. So that was a mistake that we made. We knew we were making it at the time. We were in a big hurry because we were moving out, and we needed to, we were sort of living in temporary accommodation, which is allowed for in my budget as well. And we had to, we were in a big rush to try and get it done. So we just didn't go through the process of getting a building contract properly. We did have a contract, but we didn't get into the process of getting a fixed fee from the builder, which was a big mistake. So definitely don't make that mistake, and definitely learn from my mistake. I told you I was going to pull back the curtains and show you. And that's something you can 100% learn from me with this particular project. Everything else, I was pretty much spot on. Some things came in a bit under, some things were, you know, approximately the same. Some things came in slightly over, but on the whole, most other things were pretty much spot on. Another thing I wouldn't bother is getting a cubby house for your children, but I'm going to address that later on down the track. I'll show you the beautiful cubby house that I made them that they never actually went into. So I will share that with you in the next video as well. So that's the budget, and hopefully just seeing what things sort of cost. This again was, you know, a number of years ago now, but many of the things are probably approximately the same sort of prices, and hopefully just by seeing this, that will help you to see what things really do cost and what a project like this really does cost as well. You definitely could keep it under that amount, although I would say in this day and age you'd probably be looking at about $400,000 to do the renovation of that size of property to the sort of spec and scale that we ended up doing. So this was a very high-end sort of property. We were targeting a high-end market. This was a sort of wealthier, more affluent suburb. Make sure you are always renovating with your target market in mind. You don't want to be creating fully high-end custom homes in areas that you're just not going to reclaim your money in. But in this particular area, we knew that we'd get the money back, which we did once we eventually sold. So it was an expensive renovation, but we did get a really good product. And once we eventually sold this property, we did recoup, or more than recoup, all the costs of the renovation. But budgets are really a tricky one, and it's something to be super careful of when you're renovating. All right, so that's about all that I wanted to share in this video. I want to share all of those before and after video pictures in the next video, one by one, room by room. And I didn't want to stick it on the end of this video because it was already getting quite long, and I don't want you to be sitting here for hours looking at this video. So next week's video, I definitely am going to be showing you the entire completed bungalow, including, this is our temporary kitchen that you can see here. So you can see that we ended up with a beautiful house. So I'm going to share all of those pictures with you. I'm going to walk through one by one, room by room, and share, you know, the exact tap that we used, the sink, the finish on the bench top, everything that we used. And then after that video, it will be on to the actual extension of the house as well, and the process that we went through for putting on that modern extension and adding the pool. And we're going to look at that in those subsequent videos as well. So there's lots to come in this series, and I hope you will be excited to stick around for it. So to be notified when the next video goes live, make sure you do subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. And if you did enjoy this video, I would be really grateful if you would give me a thumbs up, because YouTube really likes that. My channel is only just getting started, and it would really help me out for you to just hit on that thumbs up button. So I thank you in advance for that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. See you later.